Welcome to Mending Piece by Piece, a podcast dedicated to helping you mend piece by piece after experiencing loss. I'm your host, Linda Falasco, a therapist with over 30 years of experience specializing in loss and grief and a lifetime of lived experience. I will start by sharing my personal story of trauma, loss, and grief, and will also include honest interviews with others who have experienced loss and who have found strength and growth afterwards. So here we go, giving a voice to trauma, loss, and grief as we learn together to mend, even if it's piece by piece. Please note, this episode contains depictions of death and suicide. We understand that some may find these activating and/or disturbing. Please check the show notes for more detailed descriptions and additional resources. If you or someone you love is struggling with thoughts of suicide, please call the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988. Welcome back to Mending Piece by Piece podcast. I'm your host, Linda Falasco. I will kind of pick up on last episode. I was finishing off with how the first year was and just talked about just how upside down everything felt, how chaotic, how confused, how overwhelming everything appeared to be for me. And that didn't stop the first year, but that first year was just trying to figure out like what really is going on. I just felt like I was crazy. I felt like I was going insane. I felt like I was really going to fall apart. I went over all the different emotions. I talked about the thoughts. I talked a little bit about the fear and the anxiety, and I shared that in other episodes. That was huge. I cannot say or emphasize how much anxiety and how much fear I had and continue to have for a long time. I continue to have, I should say, because I still have a lot of anxiety and fear, but it's different. That first year, it was really bad. I was so fearful of all kinds of things. That first year was really just trying to figure out, am I nuts? Am I going crazy? Am I going to end up in a mental hospital? Because I felt that way. And I really didn't know, like, hey, is this normal? Now I can look back and say, yeah, it was normal, and going to the group, understanding and hearing from others. But it was hard because as a sibling, I didn't know anyone else who lost a sibling. I didn't know anybody really who lost anyone to suicide. I was really feeling isolated. And, people are like, oh, I understand. I lost my grandma. I'm sorry you lost your grandma, but it's not the same. It's not even close. So it was just hard. Some of the other things during that first year that did happen that were good, but then mixed, was I finished school. I lost my brother July of 94. I graduated from grad school May of 95. Now that was huge. That was a big accomplishment for me and for my family. Because in my family of origin, I was the first one to graduate high school. So to go to college and graduate that, and then to go to grad school, it was like I was like a surgeon or something. Like that was unheard of. So it was big, but it was mixed because I didn't share it with my brother. He wasn't there. And we'll talk about Michael. Michael could have a whole podcast just on Michael. Michael wasn't there either at that time because he was then incarcerated again. But like I said, that's going to be probably another season just on Michael. So I had this great experience and I graduated. And before I even graduated that morning, I got engaged. That was great. I look at pictures from that day. I threw my own graduation party at my house. And it's interesting looking at them now because I'm smiling, but I know inside how hurt and how hurt and how different I still felt and how hard it still was. So here we are, my mom and my dad. We're all trying to put on this mask and pretend like we're all great, but inside we're a mess. And it's hard too looking at those pictures because I don't talk to most of those people anymore. And I'm talking family. My grandmom that was in the picture, she's passed, but the rest of them I don't talk to. So there's more loss. And with these losses, I have realized and still trying to come to terms with how you lose these other relationships or other experiences and these secondary losses. This is a good time for me where I'm getting to celebrate, but it's dampened. That was probably the first experience getting engaged and then graduating that I realized, or I thought at that moment, will I ever be able to fully be happy? Will I ever be able to really enjoy the moment? Or will this grief be this cloud constantly over me? Or it almost felt like a wet, heavy blanket that's just going to just weigh on you so heavily. So there's good, but within the good, it's mixed. And I know that's hard on my parents because here we're trying to celebrate some things, but I always felt too that I don't know if I deserve to have that attention because my brother's not here and my parents, they don't have that for my brother. I don't know. I still can't even make sense or formulate the right words to explain this guilt and these thoughts that I had around things like this where I want to celebrate, I want to have a good time, but then I'm feeling really bad about doing it. And that's one of the feelings that a lot of people experience with grief is you start to feel guilty when you catch yourself smile. You start to feel guilty if you say yes to something that's supposed to be good for you. You feel guilty when you hear yourself types of loss. But I can say suicide loss just it magnifies this stuff. It really does. So I was trying to get my way through this, trying to figure out how to do this right. And there is no right. I said that last time. There's no right. One of the things that I didn't really talk about, I said I'll talk about it separately, is the why. And that comes up all over. Why is he not here? Why did this happen? Why would he do this? Why did I miss this? Why, and more whys. So I can say, why for somebody who lost a loved one to suicide is something I'm going to say majority of people, they go through. And you can't give somebody the why. So what I mean by that is I can't say to somebody else, well, this happened because, and fill in the blank. Even if that was correct, the person going through it has to come up with their own why. So my why, my mom's why, my dad's why, my brother's why, one of his friends' why, they're all going to be different. They may be a little similar or maybe we'll all come to the same why, but I doubt it because again, we're unique individuals. Our relationship was unique. And yeah, it's different. And we're at different stages of our life and we're in different mental states. So it's different. The other thing with why, before I go into my brother's why, I'm just trying to explain how this why is just, it's always there, is that you'll wrestle with it. You'll, why, you'll wrestle with it and it just keeps there. It's there, it's there, it's there. And then you come up with an answer that may satisfy you. That might be like, all right, I got it. It may quiet it down. I don't want to use the word peace because it's not peace, but it just quiets it down. And you might be like satisfied. That's the best way to look at it is you become satisfied and like, okay. And then all of a sudden you thought you had the why and it comes up again. I could tell you that's happened so many times. And at one point I remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm here again. I'm actually wrestling with this why again. So I can tell you that that's normal in this abnormal grief, is that you may come up with a why, it may satisfy you for a while, and then you have to go wrestle it again. And you cannot give somebody else the why. And I know I've been in the counseling field, I do it myself, but being on the other end, when I was getting counseling, let me just tell you, the counselors out there that try to fill in that why and have not a clue about suicide loss, it was not helpful. Was not helpful at all. I went to a couple people and then had to find other people because they tried to treat this loss like other losses. And it's not. It's not. It is so different. And unfortunately, unless you've been through it, you just don't know. And I don't want anyone. I wish this would end suicide. I don't want anyone to ever, ever have to go through this excruciating pain of losing a loved one to suicide. Because it's a pain like no other. It's a pain like no other. So the why, that's, again, a question that you'll just wrestle and wrestle and wrestle. So for my brother, why? I'm not going to go through all the various whys of every time I wrestled it. But I think when I get these answers, I was hindsight 2020, so I could piece things together. Okay? I could piece it together. And I was just trying to figure out and make sense of this. And this is really why we need to explore the why, is we're trying to develop an acceptable narrative for why the suicide occurred. This is one of the most essential tasks in healing for suicide loss survivors. So when you're trying to take that from somebody or give them an answer or trying to quick fix, because in our society, we love quick fixes. There ain't no fixing this. There's not. Giving someone their why. So just try to remember that. It's really important for their healing to come up with an acceptable narrative. They need to do that. So as I was searching for answers, I was trying to do this. It helps the survivor regain a sense of control. Like, I know myself when I was like, okay, I was depressed or this was going on or that was going on. Like, I felt just a little bit more secure. Still didn't have really good footing, but I felt a little bit like, all right, I'm gaining a little control over this thing that makes no sense and so out of my control. So I am, again, up north. I live outside of the Philadelphia area. My parents are down in the Florida Keys. And we're all searching for our why, I guess. And in this moment, this first year, I'm in grad school. I'm doing my groups. My parents are down there. And we were doing it very differently, let's say. I thought I had why. I thought at one point, I'm like, what? I was able to figure out my brother was sad. Looking back, I could see we all were depressed. We all had great anxiety. We grew up in a very chaotic environment. We've experienced a lot of trauma. We've experienced a lot of trauma before this even happened. And I'm kind of crying and laughing at the same time because the guy didn't realize that stuff was trauma, even as a therapist, because it was my stuff. It was just, that's how life was. That was my normal. Looking at this, I knew my brother was sad. I knew that he was depressed. I have this flashback memory, like, of him standing. And part of me, I'm not sure how much of this is real. This is the crazy part. And again, going back 30 plus years, because this is before he passed, I can remember him in my grandma's kitchen. And I feel like he was really distraught. We may have been talking, like, I don't remember him saying he was suicidal at all, but I knew he was really upset by something. I have that flash and faint memory. And I've never been able to, like, really put any other pieces of, like, what exactly was going on. What were we talking about? But I have that. So I know that there's, like, a history, and I know because I've had it. I grew up in the same environment as he did. I know the move was huge for him. I know that losing his friends, losing his girlfriend at that time. But also, he had a girlfriend. He had just started seeing somebody, I think, that had ended. I don't know much of it. I don't know the details, but I was, again, searching for my why. I did find that. What's interesting is, just an aside, not aside, but it does tie in, is that I was in my attic. You're going to laugh at it. Anyway, I was in my attic because I have these Webkins that I had. I bought tons of them thinking I'm going to get rich here years ago when a toy store went out of business. So I still had them. And someone just literally last week, I had them on Facebook. I forgot all about them. Was like, hey, do you still have these? So anyway, telling you this because it does kind of why I'm up in my attic. I'm up there getting these Webkins. So I get the Webkins, and then right next to that is my brother's briefcase. And I think I shared that I had his briefcase. And what's interesting is I shared about the note that he left, and I had that note in that briefcase. And that note's not there because I was going through it, and I wanted to make sure, because I just recorded the other episode of like the note. I couldn't find a note. We'll go back and look. Maybe it's somewhere else, but I don't know where it went. I had everything there, but I found some other stuff. I found myself going through this stuff again, and I reading the letters that he had and I kept. I don't know why I have certain things that I have, but I do. And I found myself up there, why, and trying to piece things together. And I know I didn't see this new information, but maybe it was new information 30 years later. But I did find a letter from my brother Michael to my brother Jeff. And it absolutely broke my heart. But it also brought back all this, like, our life was chaotic. My brother wrote him saying, "Can't we be brothers again? Like, really, can we try this? We shouldn't be at each other." This is Michael, the youngest. And he's like, "I hope when we get out, we can do this." And he asks him a question. And he says, "When we got in that fight, and you said," I forget the guy's name, "you said whoever said he was going to hang me. Was that true? Did you hear that from him? Or did you hear this from somebody else?" I have to be honest. Maybe I've read that. I had to read it. I have gone through this stuff over and over, but I don't remember it. And it's really hard because now that's my brother Michael asking Jeff if this person said he was going to hang Michael, him. My brother died by hanging Jeff. Now I'm going to share the other whys that could have been. And I've only shared this. I can't believe I'm going to share this in this podcast, but I said I would get real. I said I would get raw, and I would be truthful. So my why at one point was the sadness, the depression, the losses. Money was an issue, and that confirmed me sharing about being up in the attic, because there was some stuff in there that remind me that, yes, he was very stressed over money. He had a DUI the year before, and it never seemed to end, meaning he did everything. He did the classes. He did this community service, hence how he met Father Tony. He met with these people every other week or something, and you had to pay a significant amount of money. Like, I have these receipts. I was looking at them last week. So we're going back 30 plus years ago, and the amount of money that this kid had to pay every 2 weeks to these people. And it didn't seem like it was going to stop. I had known some of that. Like, I knew that. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. He just felt like he was getting to his last straw. I don't know. Job. He had a really good job, really liked it. And then he started working for this other job, and I don't think he liked it as much. When he first got down there, he was doing plumbing with somebody, and that person was really good to him, and they were good friends. I don't remember why that stopped, but my brother started doing plumbing on his own. And what was really cool is that he really looked up to Rob. because Rob was a plumber. Rob had gone to school and got his master plumbing certificate and had started his own business. So that was something that Jeff would always say to me is, I want to come up there. I want to come up and work with Rob and do plumbing. So he was in a job that was not plumbing at the time, and I don't think that was making him happy. So that became my why. At the same time, my mom was searching for her why. Are you currently navigating the difficult journey of grief? Are you searching for support and guidance to help you heal? Then listen up, because we have something special for you. Introducing Mending Piece by Piece workbook and journals. They are more than just books. They're compassionate companions designed to support you through your grief journey, one step at a time. These invaluable resources are not just workbooks and journals. They're crafted to honor your grief journey without judgment or impatience. With Mending Piece by Piece, you'll find educational information to help you understand the complexities of loss and grief, shared in a factual yet deeply empathetic manner. Whether you've lost a loved one to suicide or you're navigating grief in general, there's a specific edition for you. Choose Mending Piece by Piece after a suicide loss, guided grief workbook and journal to heal the survivor's heart, or Mending Piece by Piece, a workbook and journal for navigating grief with hope. And the best part, you can find both editions on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, ready to accompany you on your grief journey towards healing and hope. And the best part, you can find both editions on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, ready to accompany you on your journey towards healing and hope. Remember, your grief journey is unique and deserves to be honored. Let Mending Piece by Piece be your guide as you navigate the complex process of grief and healing. So, Florida Keys, they're very small little islands. Police departments are small, and I guess everyone can kind of know everybody. And my mom, like I said, was doing her search for a why, but my mom was putting herself in some pretty dangerous situations to try to find answers and to try to get an understanding of what was going on. So there were rumors very early on about my brother Jeff. I didn't live there, so I didn't know people really down there. The only people I knew were people that I met through my parents or met through Jeff. I remember when I was hearing these rumors, I did reach out to his old boss to try to get some confirmation. And he did, he confirmed this is what was being said. So apparently my brother, like I said, he wasn't real happy with the job he was at the time. And rumors had it that this company, this employer that he worked for, was running some drugs. Not little drugs, some big time drugs. So my mom was going there and she was trying to get some answers. My brother apparently got involved because I think they were all involved in this situation. My mom, like I said, was on her own search for why, her own desperate search to try to find out why. As there were lots of rumors and they were growing, and she was putting herself in dangerous situations to try to find these answers and to get an understanding. I'm up here, she's down there. I'm hearing it through my brother Michael, and I'm also hearing it through my dad. And I'm also hearing my mom tell me this stuff. And listening to my mom, I was like, you are crazy. This does not sound like reality. This is like a movie. This isn't real. And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, all right, she's going off the deep end. I was worried for her. We were worried. I was worried she's going to get herself killed. I must have come down for, I don't know, holiday. I don't know what I came down for. But I was able to get and meet with the person my brother used to work for. And I just said, I need an honest answer. And I just was like, what have you heard? Jeff's old boss and good friend was able to confirm that the rumors and the stories that were going around were true. The stories have been that were going around in this little small key is that the company that my brother was working for at the time they were drug dealers. It was big. It apparently was big. And I don't know how far up it went. So these young kids that also worked there was maybe like 5. And it wasn't long for my brother. I'm going to say I think it was only a few months. They were like, "Oh, here, can you take this here?" or whatever. So apparently he had some and he must have gave it to somebody, fronted them, who never gave him the money. That is what the rumor was going around, is that my brother owed these people money and time was ticking. I guess my brother Michael, so I'm getting different stories, right? Michael is in the know because Michael is in the know. My brother Michael, from an early age, was just with the wrong people all the time. That was not my brother Jeff. So this always never really made sense. So Michael did verify that this is what he's hearing, and he knew a lot more. Probably was telling my mom. So my mom was going out and my mom was getting herself in situations, trying to see who the person is that's at the top of this, which was not good. So what we heard was that my brother owed money and my brother was told he had till midnight, July 17th, 1994 to get the money, or else him and his family were going to be killed. I didn't share that with many people. I'm hearing this from my mom, and I'm also hearing the same stories from my brother. And then I got the confirmation from somebody that I considered a trustworthy source, my brother's friend and old boss, who was not involved in any of this type of stuff. It was like, that's what's being said. It's okay. I don't know. I'm still grieving my brother, and I'm like, what? Okay, here we go. I don't know what to do with this. What am I supposed to do with this information? What made it even harder when I found this stuff out is that where my brother died was in the carport under the home where my parents lived, where he lived. And my parents had made an apartment underneath there. And there were 2 or 3 kids that my brother worked with for this company that lived there. They rented it. And one of the nights before everyone came, they came up and they were so sorry. They were so sorry. They acted very sad and they brought some champagne. And I can't remember. I have a bottle downstairs still. I think they may gave us 2 bottles of champagne in, but I know we kept them. My mom kept them for a long time. And I know she gave me one and I may still have it. But they were, whatever you guys need, whatever we can do. We're so brokenhearted. We didn't see this. La 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 la. Come to the funeral, they're all sobbing, whatever. To find out they all knew about this and they were all involved. What one? Who? Who did the threatening? I don't know. So that was my mom's why. Was my why for a little bit. And then I just buried it. I didn't want to think about that. Like, how does somebody threaten your family? And my brother was a very, very sensitive kid. He was so sensitive. And my mom and dad did say that night, he was so upset. And all he kept talking about was money. And he had to get this money and he had to get this money. And they were like, don't stress. You'll get it. They were thinking it had to do with maybe the DUIs or whatever. They had no idea that this was going on. That is a big possible why. It's a big possible why. I think that was my mom's why. I think it may be my why, but it's a hard one. It's really hard because I think it's accumulation of things. I think there was a lot of other things that probably also influenced it because why didn't he just ask for help? Why didn't he do anything? But what we found out is that, like I said, this was a lot bigger than this little small time drug dealer thing. It was big, and my mom was getting into it. But when we realized how big it was, and this was years later. So at this point, my mom is not living down there. My parents had split up. My dad was still down there, but not in that key. Apparently, the big guy, maybe the head of that company, got caught. Apparently, it was coming in through the water, and I think the Coast Guard got them, but it was like they waited till it came ashore, and it was a lot, like one of those things you see on TV, like huge, big time drug bust. So a lot of them ended up going to jail. I think it was at that point. Now this is years later. It was at that point that it came back up for me, because in the back of my head, and in the back of all of our heads, was this a suicide? Was it a suicide? Or was it something else? Now, I've done, and I haven't talked about it, but I'm going to talk about it in the next episode, like what helped me. I shaped my whole life, basically turned into suicide loss and getting involved in suicide prevention and all that. And I remember going through this thinking, well, would it make a difference if I found out it was something else? Like you're years in now. It doesn't make a difference. You already experienced all these feelings as if it was. I had worked for the medical examiner, and I asked him, I said, if I called these investigators, because remember it was investigated, and I got some information, would I be able to get more information? Because I have a feeling, going back and putting pieces together, if rumors were going around, they also knew. Because again, looking back, some of the questions I thought were a little odd, but it would make sense now why they were asking what they were asking. And he said, yeah, they would still probably have all that information and wouldn't be hard to get it. And if I needed his help, let him know. I sat with it, talked to Rob about it, and I decided not to pursue it. Because you know what? It's not bringing my brother back. It's not bringing him back. He's going either way. So at that point, again, my why seemed to shift a little. I couldn't help getting out of my head what these investigators said. How did he do it? He was so intoxicated that he shouldn't have even been able to walk. Could have possibly been in a coma. I don't know what happened. Truth be told, I don't know what happened. I hold on to my brother made this decision, I guess. I think he thought that they were going to come after him and come after the family. And that was his option. Does a part of me wonder, did these people do that to him? Oh, yeah. But either way, my brother was suffering. My brother was scared. My brother was so distraught that he thought dying or getting out. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, it sucks. Either way, it sucks. So this answer to why is never simple. And for us, it definitely wasn't simple. There'll always be a piece of me that wonders what exactly happened. I think I'd always wonder what exactly happened. Like I said, that why. But I choose to think that my brother just was distraught, I guess. I choose to just continue that narrative. I choose to continue just to think that he was absolutely distraught. And yes, that this situation was what pushed him. But there's a lot of question there. I don't have Michael here to ask. And I remember a couple times trying to get more information from him. And sometimes the timing wasn't right, or he would be like, yeah, I'll talk to you about it later. And now I don't have that. I can't ask him. And yeah, for me, it's pretty conflicted. We all had our own search for the why. And we all probably came to different answers on why. And that's okay. That's okay. Part of me wishes that we could have united and just came up with our own family why. I don't know how to put that, but that we could have talked at least a little more about it. But we didn't, because everybody was in their own place. My dad he didn't want to talk. It was too difficult. And then, like, as it passed, I didn't want to ask anymore. So when it was coming up for me, I just had to settle with where I was at. I didn't want to ask any more questions. I didn't want to bother my family, my parents, because they weren't there at that moment, meaning they weren't questioning why. So I wasn't going to bring it back up. So the why probably continues. The why will always continue. Thank you for listening to another episode of Mending Piece by Piece podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, and share with family and friends. See you in 2 weeks. And until next time, continue mending piece by piece, healing through grief, one step at a time.